General Motors reporting its first quarterly profit since 2007 this morning. The automaker helped by higher production as well as smaller discounts. Well, joining us now is Chris Liddell. He's the vice chairman and also the CFO of General Motors from the company's headquarters in Detroit. Chris, good to have you with us. Appreciate your time. Okay, so pretty good number is coming out from GM this morning, your first quarter results. Does that put you in good shape for an IPO later this year?
Well, the way I'd characterize it is it's part of the rebuilding process. We're rebuilding the company here. And first and foremost, we obviously have to build and sell great cars, but achieving profitability is critical as well. So as we start to think about an IPO, achieving profitability is important, and achieving sustainable profitability is critical.
Critical indeed, but I know your chairman, Ed Whitaker, or your CFO as well, has said, though, that this is going to be, profitability is going to be very key to launching an IPO later this year. Would you say, though, that at the very least, this puts you on track to do that?
Well, it's certainly, it's encouraging, and we haven't committed to a time frame. You mentioned the end of this year. We haven't actually committed to a specific time frame, but having a track record of profitability and having a track record of all the things underlying that profitability is critical when we make the final decision to go for an IPO.
How soon after the IPO, when it launches, Chris, would you be able to then pay back the government in full its $50 billion or so, I believe, investment still in General Motors?
Yeah, for the U.S. government, which owns around 62% of the company, they will finally, if you like, have repayment when they've sold that whole 62%. So I think even with an IPO, realistically, even with the largest one that we could think of, that's not going to allow them to sell all of that stake. So that's going to happen progressively, probably over the period of a few years, to be honest.
A period of a few years. Okay, but starting, though, pretty soon after your IPO, you would imagine, right?
Well, the IPO, we call it an IPO, but it will involve, from a technical point of view, a secondary sale of some of the government shares, almost certainly. So that will start to repay the part of the investment that they have in equity. As they sell their shares down, they'll start to get some money from that.
Okay. And Chris, there's speculation right now that General Motors could go back into auto lending. Are there plans in place for that?
Well, I think it's critical that we have a fully developed and liquid market for auto financing. Clearly, it's important for our dealers. It's important from customers as well. So we have a great relationship with GMAC, which is our historic captive. Whether we get back into the captive business or not, I think is just speculation at the moment. But it's really important, and we work very closely with GMAC and, for that matter, other lenders in making sure there is a good supply of financing for customers.
Well, it certainly would make good sense, though, as GM gets back on track, Chris. I mean, if that were to happen, though, would it make more sense for GM to buy back GMAC or to start auto lending altogether from scratch again?
There's pluses and minuses in both. A lot of companies have captive finances, others don't, and we've certainly existed for the last year without one. So it's not necessary that you have a captive, and certainly it requires a lot of capital that you could otherwise put into other productive entities. So it's not essential that you have a captive. It is a possibility, and certainly some companies do it.
Okay. All right, Chris, we'll leave it there. But thank you so much for joining us and illuminating us on the General Motors story. That was Chris Liddell, the vice chairman and CFO of General Motors.